Okay, today we're gonna look at the first of yeah, the first this is gonna be the first lecture that I do on any of Sorley MacLean's poetry, and today we're gonna look at, like I said, the first of his poetry collection, um, which is gonna be "I Gave You Immortality." Okay, now this poem is basically this poem sets the tone and the sort of theme which is carried out in the rest of the poems, which I'm gonna look at, which I'm gonna be explaining, and that is the sort of theme of love, classic love, romantic love, and also sort of like heartbreak. The type of love that he describes, the type of love that he describes in these poems that we're going to look at, for example, this one, The Girl with the Red Gold Hair, Shores. The type of love that he describes is, excuse me, the type of love he describes is like the old-fashioned like fairy tale type of love, and he describes like basically the classic idea of the man that's heartbroken and chasing sort of this almost like goddess like female woman. Um, this poem here deals with, like I said, those themes, and you can see the contrast in the poem between basically him describing like how much he loves this woman and how amazing she is, and also the sort of profound negative impact she's had on his life in terms of like breaking his heart, essentially. Um, it's interesting for us, like this type of love. I don't know if it exists anymore yet, really. Maybe it exists for like, yeah, kids or teenagers or something, but generally speaking, this type of love, with like a man pursuing a woman and sort of like, but actually that's not true yet. It actually does exist now, to be honest. It exists, but usually the outcome of this type of love where the man is pursuing the woman and he sort of, you could say, pedestalized her, he sort of made her, as in this poem and in the classic sort of poetry of, you know, making the, I don't know what you'd say, but like turning the woman into sort of a divine figure. So people still do this, men still do this till this day, but normally what happens is once they break up, they obviously go through a very hard time. They have an extremely hard, heartbreak. And then usually what happens is the man, either he becomes sort of depressed and he just gives up completely on love, and maybe he'll develop some kind of hatred for that woman, or he goes like the other direction and he sort of becomes, quote unquote, red pilled. He sort of, he maybe becomes a player or something. In any case, we've sort of taken this classic um story, and we now have our own sort of like take on it, our own version of it, which is playing out in the modern like dating environment. Um okay, anyway, so he goes on to say, I gave you immortality, and what did you give me? Okay, so the other major sort of theme in this poem is similar to what we talked about in other poems, which is the speaker is immortalizing the figure of his love. This is obviously common in like Shakespeare in his sonnets, and also where else did we talk about it? I think maybe in Robert Burns we talked about it. I can't remember, but in any case, it's quite common that the poet is trying to immortalize another person through their poetry. So he says, I gave you immortality, meaning I wrote my poems about you, and now people will remember you forever, as long as my poems are around. And what did you give me? Only the sharp arrows of your beauty. So you have a contrast here, almost an oxymoron, an arrow being sharp, and then beauty, which is supposed to be something appealing and attractive that you want to be near. But obviously, an arrow is something deadly, something that will kill you. It's made for killing. So he's basically saying that this woman was extremely beautiful to him, but she was extremely deadly to him. She was, she's the cause of his heartbreak, essentially. A harsh onset and a piercing sorrow. So he's extremely depressed. Bitterness of spirit and a sore gleam of glory. So again, bitterness of spirit, he's extremely depressed, and a sore gleam of glory. So all throughout this poem, what you're gonna see, okay, is that he has lots of contrast between feeling like he's becoming great, that he has become, a great poet, or that he's achieved some kind of success, he's achieved something, but the cost of achieving it was basically this woman breaking his heart. So basically, What he's saying is that she turned him into a poet by making him feel all these like intense, negative emotions through breaking his heart. But because she did that, he was able to basically, become successful and become a great poet. That's like the idea. Um, okay. So, okay, he goes on to say, if I give you immortality, you gave it to me. So again, he's saying, if I give you immortality, meaning through my poetry, you gave it to me, meaning because you're making me feel these intense emotions, and that's the inspiration for the poetry itself. So it's like what do you call it? Uh, it's like they're joined, yeah, they're joined in their what do you call it? They're joined in this dance that's going on. She is causing him to generate the poetry, and the poetry that he generates is about her. So it's like they're symbiotic, if you like. Okay, you put an edge on my spirit. Again, makes talking about he feels depressed, etc. And radiance in my song. And though you spoiled my understanding of the conflict, yet were I to see you again, I would accept more and the whole of it. So, so basically, the man is not over her. The man is not over her. In fact, he still very much is in love with her, and he still would like to be with her, even though she she broke his heart. Yeah. So, yeah. So he needs to move on. Yeah, but yeah, he obviously hasn't moved on yet. But anyway, he needs to move on. He needs to talk to some other girls yet. But anyway, he's heartbroken, and he's at this point, he's basically still he's still thinking about her, and he still wants to be with her, even though she has broken his heart. Um, and though you spoiled my understanding of the conflict, yet were I to see you again, I should accept more in the whole of it. What conflict? We're not sure. It doesn't say explicitly, but perhaps the conflict between the two of them. And maybe what he's saying is you spoiled my understanding of the conflict, meaning of what happened. Maybe she has convinced him and spun the story in a way that he now, he doesn't see the accurate picture. He doesn't see how it is. Maybe he now blames himself. It was her fault or something else. I don't know. But in any case, he's saying that he's so basically in love with her. He can't believe how amazing she is that he would still, despite all this, he still wants to be with her. He still wants to see her. And again, this is just sort of reflecting and reminiscent of like the classic romantic poetry. I don't mean romantic as in time period. I mean romantic as in like genre or like content. Like the classic romantic poetry. It reminds me a lot of like for example, like it's not medieval. It's the I don't know what time period's called, but it reminds me a lot of like for example, like the Fairy Queen, and it might be medieval actually. Reminds me a lot of like the Fairy Queen and the old sort of ideas and stories and poetry about like the knight going out, and he's like sort of everything he does is for the sake of the woman that he's trying to be with. He sort of he does everything that he can to just try to be near her. To be near her is a sort of is like a massive gift in itself. It's like it's interesting if you look at if you look at a lot of classic poetry, a lot of classic writing, what's extremely interesting is we have this, or some people have this modern idea that people in the past, they sort of had a negative view of women in terms of like, um, in terms of seeing women as property or seeing women as, lesser or inferior or something like that. Yeah, maybe to some extent that might be true, maybe in some places or in, some sort of categories or some situations, that might be true. Um, but if you're talking about like literature and you're talking about like poetry and stuff, realistically speaking, if you look at a lot of old classic writing and old classic stories and works of art, the woman is almost taken beyond, and not even almost, the woman is often taken beyond the human dimension and the human realm, and she's extremely pedestalized and made into a divine figure. It's extremely common, like the idea of like the saving the princess from the dragon, or like the idea of the divine woman who the goddess that the warrior kneels before, and she gives him her blessing. It's like the woman for a long time has not even almost, has literally been worshipped, like in history for a long time. Women, again, especially like, speaking in terms of like literature and art and so on, like women have been like worshipped, like literally. And I guess it would make sense in terms of, if you look at it from maybe the Christian sort of lens, if you're looking at it from the idea of, for example, Mary, who was seen as a divine figure. They call her Mary, the mother of God, right? So she's like supposed to be, divine herself. And not just Mary, but even before Mary, you had, if you look at the Greek traditions, you had, for example, Hera or Hera, I don't know how to pronounce that. Hera, wife of Zeus, who's also supposed to be the mother of the gods, Aphrodite, and so on, Athena, and so on. And obviously, before the Greeks and the Romans, you had the Egyptians who, had, for example, Isis and, other female figures who were worshipped, literally. So, I maybe like politically, maybe in terms of, ability to enact, decisions and so on, or, in terms of personal agency, maybe for sure, maybe women had less abilities and power and so on. But in terms of artistically and in terms of literature, even all the way up until, Shakespeare and beyond, women have always been sort of pedestalized. Like I said, they've always been made into beyond human. And especially with the poets, they've always been sort of seen as like muses, as an inspiration for poetry. Um, and I think the reason, you could ask, what's the reason for that? I think the reason for that might be, beyond just like the spiritual and so on. Excuse me. Beyond the spiritual and, religious ideas, like I spoke about a minute ago, like the reason for that could be, that uh women are essentially what do you call it, the source, or the doorway, if you like. Women are the gateway of life, essentially. Obviously, women are the place where babies, you know, children come from, obviously. So, uh, like if you think about that metaphorically, women are essentially women replicate or mimic the idea of the creative force in the universe, or like the creative power of like God himself, like the female being, uh the female spirit is creative, because we obviously all come from a woman. So it's like, if you take that and then you combine that with the arts, obviously every poet is a creator in some way. We all are trying to lean on that creativity and that creative spirit. So the female is seen as like the sort of highest symbol of that, something like that, yeah, along those lines. So I think that would make sense of why that's the case. Um, and this isn't something new, even all the way back into the oldest text that we have. For example, if you read the Iliad, which is at least 3,500 years old, something like that, by Homer, the opening lines are sort of a prayer to female goddesses. Huh? Their opening prayer is a prayer to the goddesses. It's translated different ways, but it's like, "Oh Muses, something something something. O Muses, sing of the rage of Achilles," or "O goddesses, sing of the rage of Achilles," something like that. Yeah, it's like a prayer at the start of the poem, the extended poem, sort of appealing for help, um, to the poet to help him tell his story. Okay. Anyway, so he goes on to say, "Were I after oblivion of my trouble?" So basically saying, after I've forgotten about all the troubles that I have, were to see before me on the plain of the land of the youth the gracious form of your beauty. So maybe he's saying, okay, after I die and I've forgotten about everything, if I was to meet you in heaven, I would prefer it there, although my weakness would return, and to peace of spirit again to be wounded. So he's saying, even if I met you in heaven and I saw you there, gracious form of your beauty, your immense beauty and looks and wonder, if I saw you over there in heaven, and I'm happy there, I should prefer it there, meaning I'm happy to be in heaven. This is after he's dead. Although my weakness would return and to peace of spirit again to be wounded, but even in heaven, when I'm completely happy, seeing you would break my heart again. Seeing you would break my heart again. So again, talking about the contrast, because he loves her so much, and if he's not with her, if he can't have her, his heart is completely broken. O yellow-haired, lovely girl, you tore my strength and inclined my course from its aim. So he's saying that you made me completely weak, destroyed me, and inclined my course from its aim, meaning that you took me off the path that I was going down. You changed my direction from the direction I was on. If he was my friend, I would have told him, listen, bro, you need to stay on your path. Don't get taken off your path. Don't get pulled off the flipping direction. But anyway, he went off his direction. If I reach my place, the high wood of the men of song, the high wood of the men of the song. So basically saying that if I become a great poet amongst other great poets, meaning in history, you are the fire of my lyric, and you made a poet of me through sorrow. So basically saying that it's because of you, meaning to the women, that you are the reason that my poetry was so powerful and people, were so amazed by it and became touched by it uh, because of the sadness that you sort of made me feel. I raised this pillar on the shifting mountain of time. Again, this is a sort of allusion or reference to the classic idea. Again, many, many poems have this of fighting infinity in the passage of time through creative activity. In other words, like Shakespeare says in his sonnet, uh, my bones will turn to dust and I will die and people will forget about me. I'll be lying in the earth, but you won't, and my poetry will continue because people will remember it and people will speak it. So it's basically fighting the passage of time and infinity and, dying essentially, mortality, pass it, defeating mortality and the finite nature of human existence through creative activity, meaning I'll create a poem which will live on after I'm dead. And so then in some form or some way, I also will live on long after I'm dead. So I won't really die, but I will become part of infinity. So he's putting a pillar on the shifting mountain of time, meaning this the poem, okay, which is going to be here long after he's gone, which he was correct in because I think he actually passed away. I'm not exactly sure when, but he has passed away and his poetry is still here. So he was correct again, just like Shakespeare when he wrote that sonnet 500 years ago, give or take. So it works. It works. This idea you can create something, and if the thing is good enough, it will keep you alive in some form or fashion, even after you're gone. It's a good thing to think about. Okay, but it is a memorial stone that will be heeded till the deluge. It is a memorial stone that will be heeded till the deluge. So till the end of time. Deluge is the flood, the great flood. So basically until the world ends. Is a memorial stone, meaning this poem is memorial stone, like a grave marker. And though you will be married to another and ignorant of my struggle, that's mad. Though you'll be married to another and ignorant of struggle, your glory is my poetry. Leave her alone, my man. She don't like you. Just leave her alone, yeah. Why are you still tripping over her? So he's saying even he recognizes, okay, that even though she's gonna move on and she's probably already moved on, and I'll give you a tip. If the chick isn't talking to you and she she is showing you that she's half interested, she replies to your messages here and there, she don't really drop no serious attention on you, she hasn't given you no love emojis, etc. Don't write her poetry yet. Don't be writing her poetry because she's not gonna it's gonna creep her out. She's gonna block you even faster, yeah, so just stop. Okay, anyway, so he goes on to say, and she's gonna marry another guy. You need to leave her alone, bro. That's kind of like stalking you. Okay, anyway, so he goes on to say, even though you're gonna get married and you're not gonna care about me, you'll be ignorant of my struggle. Yes. So she's not gonna care about him or his pain. Your glory is my poetry. Your glory is my poetry. After the slow rotting of your beauty. Yeah, and this is kind of, you could think of the last line there as sort of like a shot. You could think of it like he's like firing a shot at her. He's basically telling her you're gonna become ugly, and it's like he's firing a shot. Yeah, it's like a passive aggressive type of shot he's firing. Slow rotting. He didn't even just say passing of your beauty. I think Shakespeare uses something like the fading of fading of your brow or something. I forget the word, but Shakespeare is it's more like compassionate. It's more romantic. It's more like fading, gentle fading of your brow or something. I can't remember exactly. But in this one, he's saying you're gonna rot. You're gonna rot like some dead meat or like some like some fruit that's gone bad. You're gonna that's the rotting of your beauty. You're gonna stink. People are not gonna like to look at you. Um, and he's saying your glory. So check this out again. It's sort of very passive aggressive. It's sort of like he's firing a shot. Yeah, this is what happens when you don't just let go of the girl and like move on. Yeah, basically, or the man and move on. So he's saying to her, okay, he's saying to her that you're gonna become very ugly one day. No one's gonna want to talk to you, or you're gonna stink like rotten fruit or rotten fish, rotten food, something nasty that no one's gonna want to look at. Even your beauty, your looks are gonna be disgusting. But at that point in time, it's my poetry that's gonna make you, uh, that's gonna keep you alive and it's gonna keep you special. It's gonna make you valuable, basically. Your glory, meaning your specialness, um your shine, if you like, is gonna be my poetry. Me, the guy that you rejected, the one that you rejected for some other schmuck. My poetry is the one that's gonna keep you alive and it's gonna keep you shining and special, and people are gonna admire you because of me. Yeah, he's basically firing a passive aggressive kind of shot and letting her know that you're only special because I write poetry about you, which is again, it's not exactly the best thing you want to be saying, yes. Not the best thing you want to be saying. And it may explain, why she might have dumped you yet. Can't be saying that kind of stuff, my man. Um, okay, but anyway, the point of the poem, again, the point of the poem, and obviously, rest in peace to the man, yeah, he's passed on. So I'm not gonna speak ill of the dead, but obviously you need to keep in mind as well that he could very well just be playing a character here, like I said before in other poem lectures. He could just be playing a character, and this could all just be basically him, using a woman as inspiration and then like playing a character, speaking out through the speaker. It's not necessarily that this is him feeling for this woman, and one sort of piece of evidence which might make that more true is in this poem he says that the woman has what is it, yellow hair? Yellow-haired woman, you made me depressed. What is it? Yellow-haired, lovely girl, you tore my strength from my whatever. So yellow hair, meaning blonde. In the other poem that we're going to look at, the woman has red hair, red gold hair. Huh? So again, it's not you don't want to necessarily start judging the poet. I'm cracking some jokes, obviously, because it's funny. Yeah. But the point is, you don't want to judge him. You just want to keep in mind that he could just be basically playing a character, using like the speaker, like the words, to express an emotion or a feeling, etc. But anyway, it's a nice poem, and it captures sort of this idea of a very classic idea of like being intensely in love with a woman and having your heart broken and like what that feels like, etc. Okay.